you so much for being here. My name is Rebecca Trout, and I am the Program Director of the All-America City Award here at the National Civic League. For those of you who are unaware of what the League does, we are over 125 years old. We work with communities across the country to really advance civic engagement, to increase equity and create more thriving communities. I would say that the All-America City Award is our flagship program. It's been around since 1949. In that time, we have recognized over 500 communities for their outstanding civic engagement practices. You can see a map on our website of all those award winners. If you're not sure if your community has won before, you can look on our website as well. So for today's purposes, we are going to dive into all things AAC, as I like to call it as our abbreviation. We'll talk about the theme, important dates, project ideas, application components, and then we'll also hear from some winners from last year, and they're going to give you some of the tips that they have for applying and some of the benefits that they've seen from winning the award. So before we dive in, I just love to take this time, because they all worked very hard, to recognize the past year's winners. So on the screen, you'll see our 10 winning AAC communities from 2022. These communities competed in a year in which we partnered with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. So that was a reading related theme. These communities had an entire year process. They went through the written application as well as the virtual presentation. So they are going to be great sources of information for you all as you begin your 2023 All-America City journey. All right, so I just want to quickly introduce today's speakers. We will be joined first by Michael Hammond, who is the Chief Innovation Officer for the City of Phoenix. Next, we will hear from April Chavez from the Sacramento Literacy Foundation. And then last but not least, we'll hear from Emily Fagan-Baker, who is the Director of the Palacios Community Hub. And one thing I wanted to kind of point out, and this was intentional, is that I have strategically picked these 3 communities. They range from big to small, from city representatives, foundation representatives, nonprofit representatives, and that is so that everyone can kind of see themselves in the award. You do not have to be a city official to lead the application. You do not have to be a huge city to lead the application. The idea is that you have just done community-driven work around the year's theme. Full stop, everyone is eligible. Towns, regions, counties, big, small, north, south, east, west, we welcome you all. Before I go into too much more detail, just a little bit of housekeeping items. I will ask that everyone remain muted, cut down on background noise, be respectful of our speakers. We will have a time for Q&A at the end. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Either make yourself a note, write them in the chat, I'll get to them later, or you can use that raise hand feature at the end of the webinar. We are recording the webinar, as well as the slides and some additional resources that our presenters have offered up will be sent to you via email, either later today or early tomorrow morning. All right, and with that, I will get started on this year's award theme. Right, so civic engagement is always going to be the backbone of the All-America City Award. So it is, how did you engage your community to solve X problem? So the X problem that we're dealing with this year is youth engagement. So we are looking for communities to talk about how they are engaging their youth in community problem solving, and or developing programs and projects that benefit the youth and therefore the larger population as well. I think we can all agree that democracy is at its best. It is working the best when everyone is actively involved, giving their opinion and contributing to the success of their communities. And we want to make sure that communities are breaking down those barriers to youth participation and powerful youth voice. But that being said, only one of your 3 projects has to be focused on that theme. So if you have one really strong youth engagement project, maybe it's a voter registration or improving mental health and trauma systems for youth project, and then your other two ideas are not as closely related to the theme, that's perfectly fine. We just need one to be targeted towards this year's theme, and then the other two can really be any community-driven effort that had significant civic engagement and had clear impacts. So you'll see on the screen some of the project site ideas. I just want to stress that this is a non-exhaustive list. So these are some of the ideas that we had for folks on either youth engagement projects or projects that are focusing on improving the lives of youth. So reducing poverty and income inequality, addressing issues of homelessness, enhancing civics education, or providing opportunities for youth leadership. I won't read them all off, but those are some ideas. Hopefully that'll spark some interest. And also, I'm always here as a resource, as are our other communities. So if you have a project idea that you're not quite sure if it fits in with the theme, please either ask at the end of today's webinar or shoot me an email or give me a call, and I'm happy to answer any of those questions and provide feedback on some of your project ideas. All right, and then now I want to just lift up some of these important dates. I put them in red so as to stress their importance and embed them in your memory. One of the great things that you're already doing is attending today's webinar. This is where we really kick off the year's award, the award event. And all of our webinars, we have them monthly, usually the last week of the month. They're typically around the theme. So I really encourage you to register for those. Even if you can't attend, we'll send you a recording, because a lot of the projects that we touch on are going to be things that might help to inform your project application. All right, mid-December is when we're looking at letters of intent. A letter of intent is not meant to hold your feet to the fire. It is completely optional. And if you submit one, that does not mean that you have to submit an application. So there's really a low lift. It's just a letter thing that our community intends to apply. That really helps with us get an idea of numbers, so we can kind of round up the correct number of application reviewers. It helps us to provide you with additional supports. We'll offer you a mentor at that time. And then the most important benefit to you, of course, is that it saves you on your application fee. So full application fees are $250. If you submit that letter of intent, you get $100 off. So that application fee is reduced to $150. So that's really important. And again, if you submit that and then decide that it's not a great year for you after all, or the theme doesn't quite fit, that's fine. Just let us know, and it won't affect any sort of future application effort. All right, February 15th, once you wrap up your Valentine's Day activities, go ahead and submit your completed application to us. That is also when your application fee will be due. Please make sure you get those in time. Basically, if it's in my inbox by the morning of the 16th, it'll be approved. I think I say midnight Pacific Standard Time, but I am not going to be checking my email at 3 in the morning Eastern Time. So as long as it's set in my inbox in the morning on the 15th, we'll go ahead and accept that. Those applications will go through an extensive review process, and then we will name the 20 finalists that were selected from those applications. We usually announce those sometime in March. Those will be announced publicly, and you will also get a personal call whether or not you were selected as a finalist. March through June, today's presenters will tell you there's a lot for you to do during that time. This is when you really start getting ready to bring your application to life. And that is when you'll be preparing this year to come to Denver to present on a stage in front of our jury. So I won't touch a ton on that today, just because if you are selected as a finalist, we'll have a very extensive call with you where we go over all of those to-do lists, provide you with all kinds of resources. So happy to answer a few questions about that period in time and about the presentations, but want to really kind of hone in on the application phase during this call, because you'll definitely hear from me more once you're selected as a finalist. And then last but not least, block off June 9th through 11th of 2023. We are so excited to be back in person with you all. We have enjoyed virtual years. We feel like we reached new communities that wouldn't have participated. We love that there was a low barrier to entry and everything like that, but we have heard from from evaluations and just everyone that's involved, that sort of feel good feeling that you get from being at the event, the networking, the learning from your fellow finalists is just missing from our virtual year. And we're really excited to be back in Denver this year and to welcome you all. That is an incredibly fun, rewarding, and meaningful event. So if you are selected as a finalist, you will be expected to attend that in June. All right, so if you have any questions about that slide, dates, projects, theme, I'm not going to get to them now, but you can either write yourself a note, put it in the chat, or just save it for later, and I'll be sure to address those. But now I want to move on to the different components of your application. If you have already downloaded an application, you'll probably see this. But there are 4 main parts. The first, just kind of some basic demographics. We want to know how big your community is, what the economic, racial demographics are. We have a lot of links to the US Census and things like that, where you can gather that information for your community. But that's really for us to just get kind of a statistical idea of the makeup of your city. The second portion, and this portion is actually not scored, but we're looking just for your overall community story. What is your community story? What, warts and all? What are some things that you've struggled with? How have you overcome them? Basically, just set the stage and give us the background of your community to give some context to that application. So community civic capital is the first scored part of your application. And by civic capital, we're really talking about the civic infrastructure of your community that allows you to collectively identify problems and come up with solutions in a collective way. So some of the aspects that we're talking about in regards to civic capital, do you have a shared vision? How did the residents help contribute to that shared vision? Is there a culture of engagement? Both sides of the coin. Does the local government reach out to the community to get their impact, their ideas and opinions on things? And then do residents feel comfortable engaging it with not only the local government, but with nonprofits, with businesses, with the Chamber of Commerce? Are people involved in your community? Inclusive community leadership. Are the leadership institutions in your community, are they representative of those community statistics that you shared in part 1? If not, do you have ways that you're going to remedy that? Do you have diverse leadership institutes that you're trying to diversify that leadership pool with? Embracing diversity and equity. I think we all know what that means. Are you looking at the diversity of your community as a strength? Are you reaching out to those who have been traditionally left out of the decision-making processes so that they're fully involved in your community and in the decisions that impact their lives? Authentic communication. I don't mean what the distribution size of your newsletter is. We're talking about two-way communication here. How do you communicate with residents, and how do you listen to residents in return? And then lastly, collaborative institutions. Does the city and schools and nonprofits, businesses, faith institutions, do you all work together? Do you collaborate on the solutions or on the problems that you've identified? Those are some of the things that we mean about civic capital. We have a really helpful resource called the Civic Index that is linked within the application and on our website. And it really defines each of these components in greater detail, and it will also give you sort of a best practice example. So we'll define and tell you what we mean by shared vision and values and say, you know what, the city of Battle Creek, Michigan has done this really well. Here's what we mean as, here's a great example of what we mean by this. Right, and last but not least, and I would say this is the part that people focus on the most, these are your three projects or programs. And again, these do not have to all three be around this year's theme. Only one needs to be focused on creating thriving communities through youth engagement. The other two can be unrelated to that theme. What we're really looking forward here is for you to tell a compelling story about these projects. We're not just looking for like a list of fitness opportunities if you're working on reducing obesity. We're looking for you to tell us, why did you select this problem? How did the community come together to like frame this as an issue? Who was involved in setting the goals? Who was involved in coming up with solutions? And then most importantly, what impacts have you had? If you haven't had impacts yet, how do you plan on getting there in the future? And how are you going to measure future impacts? And this is where I will get into the application criteria. So those three projects are going to be sort of graded, if you will, on these criteria. Again, I don't want to kind of read off the screen of this slide. You'll have all this information in greater detail on the application. And again, these slides will be sent to you. I'm just going to give you an overview of each of the criteria. We're looking for a shared vision of your projects, that this is not just something that the city decided needed to be a priority, or that one group decided or one business decided needed to be a priority, that this was really your community coming together to decide, hey, we really want to wrap our arms around this problem and solve it together. So does that project have a shared vision and sort of shared effort behind it? Civic engagement. So how have residents, other community stakeholders and institutions, how have they been involved through the beginning of it? How have you listened to people? How are you using that feedback and actually acting on it in the implementation stages? And with all of this, kind of keep that youth lens in mind too. So shared vision, did you include youth? Did you get their idea of what the shared vision was? Civic engagement, okay, you engaged all of the normal players, but were young people also included in those listening sessions? Inclusiveness and equity, we're talking about the intentional involvement of diverse segments and perspectives of your community. We all kind of know who the usual suspects that show up to town hall and give opinions and sit on all the task forces and the committees, and we love those people and we want to have them involved, but how are you getting outside of that group of people, and how are you involving more diverse stakeholders, and how are you developing programs that are going to have equitable outcomes? Collaboration, you'll start noticing a theme. We want everyone involved. How are business, academia, nonprofits, if you have a military base, are they involved in these projects? Tell us how everyone is involved and how you are collectively making decisions together. Innovation, are you creatively leveraging existing community resources? You know, we don't necessarily want you to reinvent the wheel. Maybe there's a youth-led nonprofit that's already addressing this issue, and instead of just completely recreating what they're doing, we would call innovation bringing in that program or that project and kind of lifting it up and supporting that instead of completely recreating. And then lastly, you'll get a lot of questions from reviewers as well as our jurors about the impacts. So we are looking for data or stories on how your efforts have worked. How have they paid off? And we will take measurable achievements anywhere from the last 5 years. So your projects do not have to be all the way complete, and they do not have to be happening in this moment. They can be from up to 5 years old. Excuse me. All right. So again, if you have any questions about either the application components or the application criteria, please make a note to yourself and we'll get to those at the very end. And now for what I think is sort of the fun and the payoff of the webinar is hearing from our communities who've actually participated in our program this last year. So I'm going to start by handing this off to Michael Hammett from the City of Phoenix. Michael?
Thank you, Rebecca. It's really great to be here. When you reached out to Phoenix, we just emphatically said, yes, we jumped on this because we're still obviously celebrating our win, but as important, we're looking at the other cities that will be applying this year, because we really believe it's as important as it was for us to actually be a finalist and then a winning city. It's really how this is spreading across the nation and bringing everyone together and lifting everyone up. So we're really thrilled to be here. We, as a City of Phoenix, we have been honored to win 6 times, including this current year. And we've applied many, many more times. So I say that because it is how much you put in is really how much you get out. And it doesn't always just mean winning. It really is about the process. Each time is like a marathon. It really, truly is. And we set our mindset on that when we brought our team together and thought, this is a marathon, not a sprint. There are times when it's a sprint, but it's a marathon, but it's also at the same time, surprisingly, a chance to reflect. It's a chance to meet with your collaborators, community, and reflect and celebrate during the process all of the achievements that have been made with the community. And it also strengthens that collaboration and strengthens really the impact on the community of whatever the project is. What All-American City is important to the City of Phoenix, and that dates back to 1950 when we first were honored, because of what the objectives are. And that is, it's that community collaboration, citizen engagement, innovation, and, you know, again, civic engagement, looking at all of those elements to have the maximum impact for the residents. And when the last application process came up, our city manager said, hey, it's been since 2009, it's gone in a flash, but we feel like we need to get back in there again. And let's look and see if a theme resonates. So we looked at the theme, and it was housing as a platform for early childhood success and equitable learning recovery. And we thought, with COVID, a lot of cities had to do that, and Phoenix certainly did. So we looked at that and we said, you know, we don't want to throw everything in there, everything in the kitchen sink, but what are some of the areas that that we feel like we were successful in, and we being the community and the city? And so we honed in. 2 of the areas were, you know, related to, you know, digital equity, and then also creating new spaces for learning. So we looked at both of those and really started to refine that and right size what we thought our application should be and what it should look like. And Rebecca, if you could please go to the next slide. Thank you. This is the statement after we're honored with the win. This was from our city manager, Jeff Barton. And this was important to bring up right now because it really does talk, you know, we mentioned Mayor Kay Gallego and the Phoenix City Council, but Jeff goes in and says our co-creators. That was really important. The students, parents, educators, and community partners wanted to thank All-American City and the third grade learning opportunity for this, you know, because it really was the collaboration, and it was looking and saying to the community during the process, what is important to you? What were some of the challenges? How did you come to the table to help collaborate with the city and our community partners so that we could have the outcomes that we were hoping to have? And Rebecca, the next slide. So at the City of Phoenix, we lead with data. We're a What Works City certified city. I know some of the folks on this call likely are as well. And that is that we use data strategically across the city to maximize impact. And it also fosters equity for our projects. And that was something that was really important during this process too. So it resonated for the City of Phoenix. We wanted to look though, and I highly recommend this, not just at the quantitative, that is very important. The measurements, all of the data that shows that some of the projects and programs are working, but also what we found during the process was the qualitative. How did people feel? How did the participants feel? How did the parents feel? Did they feel like their students were in a better position in terms of learning recovery in a better position in terms of some of the resources, the digital resources they had been provided. And some of those really, the more we got into it, the more those rose up throughout the process. So that was something that was really beneficial for the city during this process, that we really highlighted those. And we can go to the next. And this is just part of our team. This was for the presentation. This is made up of city staff, but community partners. I want to point out Rosie in the blue at the back. So Rosie is a community member who was just instrumental in this process, but also instrumental in the development of these projects and programs. As a community member that lives in the city's community housing programs, she was really dedicated to helping her family through this process over the years. But at the same time, she moved up to a leadership role, and she helped other families. She served as a mentor. She provided bilingual translation for those that needed it. So she's just an example. Another that came out through the process was a young woman named Beatrice. And Beatrice was in one of the housing communities that did offer these services, and she helped co-create those services when she was younger, also helping her younger siblings. But then Beatrice went on to serve on the Youth Leadership Council, and then she has gone on to the university. And she's going to be, we always say she'll probably be a councilwoman or the mayor or whatever she wants to be in life. But for many of us, Rosie and Beatrice came up during this ongoing application process. So I highly recommend letting those stories come forward. We had a big team, and I recommend this too. It's a big team where you make sure that voices are heard, it's inclusive, and you keep adding to it when needed, but you also have a core team, because ultimately you need to meet the deadlines, and you need to make sure that you're taking all of the input and synthesizing it down. So we had a core team, myself as the innovation lead. We had a program subject matter expert, our youth and education director, Tim Valencia. And we had Sarah, who was new to the city out of her master's in public administration program, who was really instrumental in keeping us on track and on point. So that was our smaller team along the way. My final thoughts would be, you are here, which is huge. And I know some of the 60 people that have applied have won before, have applied before. We took the mindset of, this is our first time. We're going into this. We're going to meet every time there was an opportunity that Rebecca provided. We moved into it because we wanted to have that learning mindset, and we wanted to start fresh. So that was really important for us. So take every opportunity, and I don't want to overwhelm Rebecca. I was so blown away by how responsive Rebecca was during the process. And there were times where we thought we're bothering her too much, but sometimes you want to know. She's very clear, and All American City is very clear. They're going to give you direction. We listen to it. Any application, you should listen. What are the objectives? And we really tried to do that. And when there was an opportunity to go over something, to go over our PowerPoint, Rebecca gave us really great feedback, and some of the other team members also as well. So I would say that share during the process, share on social media, whatever your platforms are. In the city, we always say, it's not about, look how great we are, we're sharing this. It's about, let's elevate this for everyone. Let's bring more people to the conversation, more people to the table, build awareness of All American City and how impactful it can be, but also the programs and projects that you're looking to highlight. So that was something that we would highly recommend. Rebecca touched on this, storytelling. Tell the stories and let others tell their stories. Let the Rebeccas and Beatrices and Rosies tell their stories, because those are the ones where we all sat back and said, these are the ones that are really resonating, because it is what this is all about. It's the impact. It's co-collaboration, and it's the impact on those that are needing the services, needing the support to move forward. So that would be my final thoughts, and I look forward to hearing my other co-presenters.
Thanks so much for that, Michael. I appreciate your words of wisdom. I just wanted to lift up a couple of things that he mentioned to reiterate. He used the word co-creation quite a bit, and I really want to stress that. When we're talking about the principles of civic engagement and collaboration, the first way that you can show that you mean that you're collaborating in civic and engaging your community civically is by having them actually involved in the application process. So it is very tempting as, and I will put this out there, as a type A person, just to write the application yourself because you know all the information the best. And that's going to be simpler and that's going to make you meet those deadlines. But I would say to slow down, involve others, collaborate with your stakeholders and residents during the actual process itself. So I really appreciate Michael mentioning that. And the second thing that he mentioned that I just wanted to lift up is taking advantage of the opportunities that we give you. And to his point, you all are already doing the first step in that, and that's being part of this webinar. This is my favorite part of my job is working with you all, helping you lift up your stories, giving you feedback. So please do not ever feel like you are bothering us. That is like one of the main pillars of this program. So please take advantage of opportunities that we give you for feedback. All right, and now I'm excited so Michael provided kind of the, I would say, more traditional city-led application viewpoint. A lot of our community applications are submitted by city governments, but they don't have to be. So our next two presenters are going to be giving you the perspective of one from a foundation, the other from a nonprofit community group. So first I'll hear from April from Sacramento Literacy Foundation. April?
Hi there, everybody. Thanks for being here today. And it's nice to see you. Thanks, Rebecca, for inviting me to be here. So I've done a couple of things, which just to kind of give you a sense, and then I don't think I'll take 10 minutes, but a little sense of like what we did. And my partner, Julius Austin, in this, my kind of co-lead, he was the Promise Zone lead who is under the housing organization in Sacramento. He and I were kind of the two people that drove the application. So he's kind of quasi-government and I'm definitely a nonprofit. And we learned about the award and quickly went, oh, we could win this maybe. So we should really try to do it. And we kept that winning spirit. One of us at all times had that winning spirit all the way through. So, you know, when I thought, oh, I don't know if we're going to win, he's like, no, we're winning, vice versa. And that really helps everybody stay motivated because everybody likes a win. And you end up winning no matter what. So it's okay to go there if you feel like it. So we had to move kind of quick. And the first thing we had to do was invite 50 people to come together to tell them about the award. So we did this workshop here. And then we went and we said, hey, everybody, we think that Sacramento can win this award. We leveraged a community meeting that I was already having on a monthly basis to get literacy people together. And then we just threw a bunch of housing people in it as well. And what we did was we went over the whole application in great detail. We introduced them to the All America City Award as an idea, which a lot of people didn't know. And then we said, we really want you to go and look at everything that we've said. We want you to come back on the 19th and we want you to, we're gonna have a deep look at the application. We want you to tell us where you fit. We want you to have language for where you fit. And we want to take the first really big step in shaping the application because we really didn't know where we were headed. They had these, you know, several different things that you could go for. And we had to see who was up for what, right? And who was there and up for the application process, and then how we could fit into the things that the categories that were given to us. We had 6 categories that we could go into. And one of the most helpful things for me to learn was that we didn't have to touch all 6. We could just be really deep on the 2. And then the other 4 could find their way, but it was a little bit, so that was helpful to us because it felt like a big heavy lift to try to touch on everything. We did everything that they offer at the All America City Award, and I think that's kind of important to just get engaged and find out. There's always something that you can learn or grab, or maybe somebody's just going to say, hey, you sound like you've got the right thing going on. Our mentor, after I went over everything and shared everything, she says, I think you're on the right path. And I was like, okay, all right, here's somebody who won and thinks we're on the right path. That was, it was moralizing, and that so that I could give that to everybody else. Make sure you share it with your boards right away, because people don't necessarily know the award. Like I had to get to my board and finally go, look, you guys, this is a big deal. Like you can't go, oh yeah, great, next. I had to get them to pause for this because Sacramento's never won. It's not a common thing for us. I think our city has tried a few times, but we've never won. And so it's not a known thing in our city. It's just getting some traction now. And the value's incredible because it brings people together. And it really helped us be the clear community lead around literacy. And it also helped us really shape the Promise Zone Literacy Initiative. Like we were doing the Promise Zone Literacy Initiative before, but now it's an initiative. Everybody in this town knows about it. Principals are tapping into it. So it's a something, right? That brought some, I don't know, good feeling to Sacramento. And I think people like that and people want to be a part of that. I would say that, you can see all of the things here. We had a lot of input, and then you want somebody that's going to drive the application. So Julius drove getting people together and making that really work out. And I wanted to show you our second meeting. I wanted to kind of show you what we sent out to everybody in preparation for this meeting. Now, Julius's whole thing, and he couldn't be here. So it was, make sure that you don't bombard people with a lot of emails and make sure you give them all the information in chunks. And I think that it's super valuable that he stayed on that steady stream. So this is the chunk for our second meeting. We had the first one where we went over, and this is what it looks like. It's long, it's extensive, it's agendized. It goes over the entire application. Then we had breakout sessions to say, which area did you fit? Because we asked you that before. We had people go into the breakouts, talk about the areas that they fit. And then we did a summary of that. And that is that meeting right there. And that's why I'm highlighting it. That meeting right there is the meeting that took us into the winning spot, I think, in truth, because it was organized and it was everything Julia said it should be. I took all the things that people wrote and I sat for about, I don't know, maybe a week and a half with myself and sending things to Julius here and there. But I wrote it. One person wrote it, and find somebody that likes writing and that can say yes to people's ideas. You want everybody to see themselves in that application so that when you send that draft out, people go, oh, I didn't waste my time. She put in there what I wanted. So you want to make sure that if you ask people for their input, that you use their input. I think that's one of the important parts of a collaboration, even if you don't like it, or even if it's not your idea. Don't get too picky about that. See this background here? We spent an hour working on this background together as a collective. And then one person wanted to change the whole thing and attempted to. I was like, no, we spent an hour doing this. Whether the other one's beautiful or not, doesn't matter. What matters is that we all came to this together and we're all going to look like this at it, and we decided. So you have to kind of make sure that's a tip. If you ask, find a way to say yes to people's input. It really helps. And then people start showing up all the time. People will show up for you. I was always surprised how many people showed up all the time. People want to win. People want to be a part of a winning team. And so just, be prepared to win. We divided up, and in the final part, which we're not getting into too much, Rebecca said, so I'll stop there, but we turned the application in on time. Now, why do I say that? Well, we could have turned it in late, but by the time we found out we could have turned it in late, we were already done with the application. but it helped us because if you tell your partners we're going to do something at a certain time and then you do it at a certain time, it goes a long way to them doing something at a certain time. It also engenders you to the whole National Civic League because they want people to do things on time too, but they also want to be supportive and they want to understand everybody's issues. So if you don't have very many issues, they're going to like that better, even if they're not going to tell you that. Rebecca is super helpful in all ways. We thought of her as an ancillary staff member in many ways, and we felt very supported by Rebecca throughout the whole process. So you can count on that. They want you to win. So if you want to win, they're going to help you do that, I think. I would say that the things that really have been great is that it helped us shape, and I'll show you what our project was. It helped us shape what we call the Promise Zone Literacy Initiative. And we had started working on it. It's a zone that Julius and I had decided in COVID, we need to get these kids books. But when we really landed on this project, we really, we got other people involved, and now many more people are helping these kids in the Promise Zone in a deliberate way, right? Like they're thinking about the Promise Zone and they're thinking about the housing complexes. The other thing that we did, we have this map here. We put housing on the map so we could see which schools are highly impacted by housing communities. And it's great because there's this school here in Twin Rivers, which is right in here, that looks like it's doing great. It's in a nice middle-class community. Turns out that it gets bussed in 400 kids of its 700 kids from this project. Well, that's a lot of work for the kids and for the school. And so what we're going to do is draw a line and figure out how to put literacy interventions both at the housing projects and at the school so that we can help connect that line and maybe make that a little less burdensome. So it also helps us do a better job at the thing that we're trying to do really, really well. And then the only real sidebar that I would say, which was a funny thing, is that people notice if you win, they do. And I had this table of 8 that there's a group of us that we do these tables of 8. And my senator, my US senator showed up for my table of 8 and talked literacy for 3 hours with me. I couldn't have got him to do that in 100 years. You get 10 minutes of these guys' time. But we had this other kind of way to meet, and he spent 3 hours at it. And he's going to totally help this one district, both financially, but as a cheerleader, to tell these kids, look, I'm with you. I'm going to do this with you. And that's what they really need, is they need a cheerleader to cheerlead this initiative, because sometimes schools, they're getting lost right now in all the problems that they have. So cheerleading them keeps them, focused. I don't know if I have any other tips. I think my one major tip in everything that I think you can try to do in life is try to do something unexpected that other people wouldn't think of. And I know that's a weird thing, but boy, I put that on the table and ask people, have we thought of anything unexpected? Is there something that we have that we can surprise people with? And just somebody's going to come up with it. And the second they do, you're going to be like, that's it. So I would just say, look for that the whole time. And that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, April. And April has also agreed to share this timeline with everyone, so it'll be included in your follow-up email. And so I'll send that to you. The dates won't be exact because you all's event is in June instead of July, but I think it's going to be really helpful to know some of the steps that they followed as a community who was successful and as a community who really had a lot of input from stakeholders and made sure that it was kind of an inclusive process. So looking forward to sending that to you all. And now I want to bring on our smallest winning community this year, the small but mighty Palacios. I always have a sweet spot in my heart for some of the lower population communities, not because they are any more or less likely to win, but they tend to think that they're not going to win. So they try a lot, like they give all of their effort. And the same was for Palacios. And they were successful because they had some really great work going on. But I want to invite Emily Fagan-Baker to join us to talk about their experience with the All-American City Award.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm going to share my screen here. All right. So like Rebecca said, we are the smallest. We're a little tiny under 5,000 population. So like Rebecca said, I think I kept getting emails, you know, about All American City. I'd attended different things, the National Civic League, and we were so busy with all that we do here at the Hub. We do literacy programs. We have ESL, GED. We house the Crisis Center, workforce solutions. We do a Parents as Teachers program. We help people when they cannot afford to pay their rent, utilities. We have basically, we say that we invest in people. Anything and everything that people need, we help them with in our town. And so I kept getting these emails, and I was just so busy kind of going, well, I'll look at that later. I'll look at that later. And I had gotten a personal email that had said, Emily, you should maybe apply for this. And so I started looking at it more, and I thought, well, what would be the reasons why I would do this that kind of take my time away from, you know, out of the office. And, you know, I'm usually working with people one-on-one, helping them actually out the housing authority, teaching the literacy classes. And so it really dawned on me, because more meetings that I was sitting in with people, I was saying that, like, I know that we're doing all of these wonderful things. I was a teacher prior to being an executive director here, and I had volunteered, and I would just basically come and do them. We weren't collecting any data. We were just going out and we were reading books to kids, and we were making sure they got books, and we were helping people get healthcare and helping them get immunizations and helping them have access to technology and just doing all these things. But this kind of made me stop and go, okay, are we doing all that we could be doing to make sure that those that are in low income housing, you know, that are in poverty, that they have a way out, right? That we want our community to thrive, and then, you know, in turn, the nation to thrive. So we wanted to look at, were we leaving anyone behind? Were we finding a way to evaluate, not just us knowing and talking to parents and talking to kids and getting all this wonderful feedback, but like, were we able to tell our donors, to tell ourselves, to tell community members that here's the data, here's what we're really doing. So that's kind of why I applied. It was really just an evaluation of all the things we were doing. That's all. I was just looking at it like that. I wasn't even thinking of, we're going to be a finalist, we're going to win. You know, I just really wanted to look at what we were doing. So in the process, what did we learn? Well, we're a little city, but these aren't even all of our nonprofits in town that are helping people. But the City by the Sea Museum, we already pair with them, where they do lots of wonderful programming for kids and for families, and they offer free memberships to our kids that are in public housing, to our Parents as Teachers program. Sanford Community Center, they're targeting more junior high school, and adults, and doing all sorts of wonderful, engaging, from working in the garden to learning about their health, to art classes, all kinds of things. The Palacios Housing Authority, we've had a long time membership with them, where, like I said, we go actually to the housing authority and do literacy programs with them. Communities and schools, they reach out to us when they have families that are in need of different, whether it's, you know, items for their house or whatever it may be, and we help with that. The school district, we were seeing what an implemental part that they play, because we get our data from them, and they're very supportive and utilize our services as well for families that they find they're in need. And Team First Book, they provide our free books for our programming. And the Presbyterian Aid Fund, as I spoke about earlier, we provide, we're the middleman kind of with them, where we help when people need services, when they need to be able to pay their rent or utilities or in an emergency. The Palacios Wellness Council, that focuses on mental health, and of course the library, and we have a elder citizens group, specifically the food pantry, the Chamber of Commerce, Lions Club, Harmony Club. Basically the point is, we were seeing like, oh my gosh, there's so many wonderful, great things happening all together. How do we get all those people to the table together? So during this process, I started a nonprofit community group that we have now met probably 3 or 4 times since then. But I'd always wanted that, and this was the stepping stone that really made it happen. So we all come collectively together, actually the Sanford Community Center, and we talk about what we're doing and how we can help one another, and who's being left behind. So that's what this application process was starting to do for us. they're seeing the different, this is at the Housing Authority, there's this here at the Hub, the museum is in the middle and on the side, that all these groups that were all these kids are cross, we're able to, there were days when I picked them up during spring break where some of them were at museum camp, and then we transported them over here for a creative writing camp. And so we were all making sure nothing was overlapping. And all of these things too, serving the Public Housing Authority, but we're seeing like, wow, everybody is doing such awesome things and making sure that we continue to work together. So, a lot of times we said we get, like I said, even when I kept getting the emails to apply for the All-American City, you get caught up in like, well, I have my regular everyday deadlines. I already have goals I'm working on. I got to make sure the money is coming in and going out. But this was just such a wonderful opportunity to make us all have to stop and go, okay, those are things that are always going to be there, but like, what can we do right now all together to help to make our city be the best it could possibly be? So that's what we did together. And we also found that we had areas that we needed to improve upon, right? So we already knew we were doing some great things, but in our application, these are the goals that specifically I pulled from our application. We wanted to make sure that we increased the numbers served, that it wasn't just the same people that we were helping over and over again, but we were reaching new populations and people that hadn't been helped before, that we increased the range of programming, that we made sure that we weren't just doing the same old thing that we had always done, that we were changing things up to make sure everybody was engaged. We wanted to increase the service locations, that making sure that, like, say at the Housing Authority, that was very beneficial. It has been for many years, because kids can just walk from their house to this meeting room that we all go to. That we wanted to make sure we spread that around town, that we increased things for parents as well. So we were just looking at all these ways that we could improve as we went through this process and in our application. And then we found out that we were finalists, and it was a total shocker, because like I said, it wasn't that wasn't why we started this journey, but it was icing on the cake, because we learned so much, and then here we were recognized for it. So we found the peer feedback was absolutely wonderful. So these were just 3 of the different things from an extensive list, that peer reviewers said that they loved our partnership with stakeholders, and that we had clear goals, and that our small community was so aware of, the importance of trust and improving. And so that was beneficial on things for us to focus on. And then the things that we kind of already knew a little bit, that when we went into it, the why we even went into it to begin is, they said your data looks like it's just a focus on attendance, that they wanted to see more, see more numbers. And they wanted to hear about how we have all these partnerships, like you saw the huge page of all of them, but how did those happen, and how did they work together, and how are we evaluating our work? So through this process, even this summer, as we were going through the presentation and the winning, we already had started doing all sorts of evaluation of all of our programming. And it was because of this feedback. It was because of these suggestions. So then we got together, and all those different organizations that I listed off, we came together to prepare our story. And it took a lot at first. When we were told we had the 10 minutes to present, you think like, oh my gosh, that's a long time to talk. And then when you get all the people together and you have so much you want to share, we had the script and cut it down. And we had a wonderful mentor, Doug Croft, and he just gave absolutely fabulous feedback every time I would send him our script or ideas. And just a few of the things that I wanted to kind of share that he said to, as others have talked about, but making sure that multiple people were involved, that keeping our answers to a minimum. And, and one of the things was, he was saying, don't feel like when they're asking you questions that it's a gotcha. He was saying it's really for them to know more. And, he talked about just smiling, that you're talking about all this serious stuff that you're doing, but it's important just to smile and enjoy yourself. So we appreciated working with him so much. So here was us. And one of the things that I worried about was after watching other people's presentations was everyone else's looked so fancy and all the slideshows and the big lights. And, we thought, oh gosh, we can't compete with any of that. Because here we were, we had our family from the Housing Authority. I'm moving y'all around on my screen. We had the museum, the school district, Sanford Community Center, our mayor, the Wellness Council, all sorts of people were involved. And then, ironically, I was really excited when we got back the juror feedback that one of the things that they liked towards the bottom, it says that we had that small town feel and didn't try to be something that we're not. So we just stayed true to ourselves and had a great time, and we included kids and we made sure that everybody got to speak. Sometimes it was only for like 20 seconds, but we wanted everybody to be involved in everybody's feedback. And so then we had a huge celebration, and we're still celebrating. We have this coming week, we receive our actual plaque, but we had decided before we even presented that we were going to have a huge celebration, whether we won or not, technically, because in our minds, we had won by getting through this process. So we had bands and we had booths, and we had, this is at the Sanford Community Center. It's absolutely beautiful. And so every day we want to just continue to strive to live to that name of All America City. And thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Emily. That was great. Really love that you it was a great way to end because I love that you talked about just the application process was beneficial, and it actually enhances the collaborations that are already there. And even of course we want everyone to be finalists and everyone to be winners, but the process is just so important, and it's rewarding. And we hear this year after year after year. So please keep that in mind. And then I love that you talked about that jury feedback about just staying true to who your city is. If you have if you're a smaller community and you want to only have a couple of people involved, that's fine. If you are a larger city and you have resources that you want to show off, you can do that too. But the idea is kind of staying true to what your community sort of ethos is. All right, we don't have a lot of time, but I do want to leave a little bit of time for questions. I can stay on if you have any questions. I also am always available via email, so feel free to either just unmute yourself and ask a question. You can type it in the chat, or there is the raise hand feature if you go to the participants tab. Any questions from myself about the criteria, about this year's theme, or for any of our presenters about how they went about this? All right, we must have done a really good job. That's what I'm going to take the silence as. But as I mentioned, this was recorded, and I'll send you this recording as well as the slides and some additional resources to you via email. We really would just love for you to consider applying. Please don't let any questions that are lingering keep you from doing that. Please email or call. It is a long process, but well worth it. All right, a couple questions coming in. If you participated last year, would you have to rewrite the community story? Definitely not. If you want to recycle, especially that part, and then probably the civic infrastructure piece as well, although at least in last year's that wasn't part of there. But the community story you can definitely recycle. Can I see in the programs we will use have a countywide reach? Is this an issue? Not at all. You can also, so I'm sorry, the question was, our town is the county seat and the programs we will use have a countywide reach. Is this an issue? So no, you could definitely include those. You could also just apply as a county, which is as one way. So I'm happy to provide different information. It's the same criteria and everything like that, but then you can kind of broaden your efforts a little bit. All right, and then Michael from Phoenix is wishing his best of luck to everyone. And then that reminds me, a lot of our past community participants, like Emily and Michael and April, have volunteered to be mentors. So once we receive that, hopefully, letter of intent for you, we can start pairing you with mentors. Emily mentioned that she worked with Doug Croft last year, who is a longtime volunteer and just gem of the All-America City Award program. I know April had a mentor who she said she was helpful. Really encourage you to sign up for a mentor if you can. You can use them as much and as little as you would like or have time for. All right, everyone. With that, I'll let you get back to the rest of your afternoon. Just a very special thank you to Emily, April, and Michael. They did an awesome job on their community's applications and presentation, and then volunteered more of their time by being on this call with me today. So thank you all so much. It has been a pleasure to get to know you all individually and also learn more about the awesome work going on in your communities. And then for the rest of you, I hope to work with you in the coming year's project. So please reach out with any questions, and I look forward to hearing from you all soon. All right, bye everybody.